Scientology could be called, well, you could call it a religion of religions.
Today's guest interview is with Robert Dam, the Defector. He's written a book called The Defector, and he used to be involved with the Church of Scientology for many years, and he also was involved with the Free Zone. And last interview I had with him, we went over more his history in Scientology, and it was in two parts, so 2 long interviews. And it's a really quite good. I listened to it recently. And today I'm going to talk to him, not so much about his history, but more questions about Scientology. And they're very deep and juicy questions. So, Robert Dam, are you there?
I'm here. I'm right here. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, good to see you. So, just quickly, I'll just ask you about what's going on with your Corona situation.
Well, we have it like anybody else, but we're not under lockdown. Fortunately, we have to disinfect, sanitize our hands when we go out shopping, wear a face mask when we enter a public building, which has a roof over it. But when you're on the streets and so on, we don't need face masks, and we don't have lockdown. We do have a situation with our what do you call it, the mink, the small animal you make fur from, which is quite a big export for Denmark for the fur industry, and they had to put them all down, 17 million of them, because they had a kind of mutated version of Corona, and there's a big political scandal going on right now. So in those
municipalities, yes.
Municipalities, yeah, exactly. In Danish, it's much easier. We call it kommuner. And we have
that sounds like some sort of surfing technique or something.
Yes. There's 6 of them in northern Denmark where they have lockdown. They are not supposed to cross the border into their neighbor municipalities. So that means they have a type of lockdown, but they can still go out of their house and so on. So we are not really badly affected, I would say. We are affected, but not badly, and people are still working and so on. So I think we're all right.
It sounds unfair on the minks because, like, can't the minks just be locked down? Why do they have to be killed?
Nah, it's ridiculous. It's political, basically.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's really political because they didn't have to be killed, and there was no good argument. They just did it like overnight almost, and they just had them all killed.
So the mink is an economic thing, isn't it? Like you make a lot of money in Denmark from them, do you?
A lot of money, yeah. It's not a very popular industry because people feel sympathy with the animals and so on. So it's not very popular. They never had many friends, but they make a heck of a lot of money for the country, and they have much better conditions for the animals than they have in many other countries, because we have in Denmark there's a lot about animal welfare and so on. So they actually these farms were much better, if you can talk about that, than in many other places in the world. So it was quite a dramatic thing, and it turned out to be an illegal order, and it's really I think the biggest political scandal I have ever experienced in my country, and it's going on right now. And then they start some lawsuits and whatever, but that's part of the Corona situation we have here.
Yeah, they're pushing this whole. It's an economic attack, and so I bet you if you had an animal that had the virus, but it just wasn't that popular and didn't make that much money, they wouldn't care. It just seems like every certain area they're trying to, as much as they can, to. It's like they're jamming a fork in the machine of the economy and trying to fuck the whole thing up.
Yeah. It seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah, because we've got the state of Queensland in Australia, and they've had really, really small restrictions, but they rely heavily on tourism. So what they've had is a strong border restriction. So that's stuffed their economy up. So they don't need to have yoga studios closed or restaurants closed because they just needed to really close the border, and that would stuff up that area. So most of Europe though is in a second lockdown, are they?
That's right. Yes.
But you guys aren't.
No, we are not. We are not that badly affected. Like in UK, it's quite bad, and many other places they are locked down. They're not supposed to be out of the house for more than 2 or 3 hours a day, and they can only go certain places, and it's quite heavy. But we're not experiencing anything like that, fortunately.
So non-essential businesses are open and stuff where you are.
Basically, everybody's working. Some is working from home, but we're all working, except of course the Copenhagen airport, which they fired 40% of their personnel and closed down 40% of the airport, and that is the biggest workplace in the whole country. So that does
really?
Yeah. Oh yes, it is. It's there's 25,000 employees in that one workplace, so it's a big in Denmark, and 40% of it has been locked down. So we do feel it for sure in the economy. There's no way around it.
Yeah, the airline industry have just been absolutely annihilated out of things.
Totally.
Anyway, so so what happened with me recently is that I had, it wasn't like straight after interviewing you. It takes time to work out sort of the truth about Scientology. But I listened to a lot of stuff. I think John Attack's stuff is very interesting. He has an ability to sort of destroy the sales talk of Scientology. So basically recently I've become like half a Scientologist because I've just seen too much evidence that the OT levels are shit, basically. Now I don't deny people might have interesting experiences and like wins here and there, but it just seems like they're shit. And so my YouTube channel got deleted, and I think it was because of stuff I said about Corona, not Scientology, because they've gone through a big YouTube purge. But I'm re-uploading my videos to a new YouTube channel called, I think, the Indie Scientology Podcast. And one of your videos was on the file, and it was where we were talking about, I think, does clear exist or something. So I started listening to it, and it really related to what I was into at the moment. This was like about a month ago. And so then I listened to our full interview, which was like 4 hours long or something. And it was interesting to hear your opinion on things, because my opinion's leading towards what yours is about Scientology. Because the problem is that we think that like, we get tricked by the people who go, oh, Scientology is just the worst thing ever. Oh, it's all bad. There's no psychic abilities. There's no spirituality. And this like weird atheist, like leftist, skeptical thingo, and they all just attack Scientology. The problem is that's not true. So you get presented with Scientology being the best thing ever, or the other one, and I lent towards the best thing ever because you just think that it's A or B, but really it's something in the middle.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I just have all these questions for you. So I'll just start with the first question. Are you willing to demonstrate to tell me how someone does an OT level? How they actually audit it?
Yes, some of them are, and some of them are solo auditing, like OT 1, 2, and 3 are solo auditing. OT 4 and 5 are audited by an auditor.
Is that when you deal with implants?
That's yeah. Oh yes, it has all to do with that, but that's mainly on OT 2 and OT 3. No, also 4. They are very concentrated about specific incidents. Whereas when you go on OT 5, 6 and 7, which is not new era Dianetics for OT, is just a term, where you are more into the entities that you audit. That meaning that, oh, wait a minute, are we going to go by the confidentiality of those?
Oh no, I just want to go into the truth of it.
Somebody might not want to listen if we talk about this.
I know. Yeah. So here's a warning. So we're going to full on talk about confidential things. And yeah, so I think I want to get to the bottom of Scientology. I want to understand exactly what's going on, because there's other spiritual groups that deal with entities. Anyway, go on.
I mean, even Jesus made exorcism.
Yeah.
According to the Bible. So it is nothing new, and it is nothing dangerous at all, as Edwin Hubbard used to state, that you're not, unless you are clear and up to it, you cannot be told about the
No, but it does
people.
seem dangerous though, because we've got OTs that are getting cancer, we've got OTs that are going insane, and OTs that are going out pointy. So
I'd like to go into that later. That's part of the story, why that, or a possible reason why that happens. It's nothing to do with the character of the material. It's an entirely different story.
Really? Because I was thinking it is, because I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, Hubbard wasn't a perfect person, because when you find out more about his personal life, you can then understand Scientology more. And it's just like the text seems faulty. Like the way it's written, number one, seems vague, so that you get these OTs arguing that person's a squirrel, that person's a squirrel, and they never know who the hell is actually standard tech, because it must have been written vague, like must have been written not specific, and then they argue forever. And then also, it just seems that like heaps of people are stuffing up, and these are top Scientologists, people who are high IQ, who should be able to do it right. So it seems like Hubbard came up with a faulty product on the OT levels.
I mean, yes, but it goes much further than a faulty product. It goes, I mean, its whole basic philosophy of the OT levels is, in my view, completely and utterly wrong and faulty.
Really?
So the whole
How?
philosophy behind it is when that is off the rail, then none of the products coming after that will ever do what they claim to do.
Yeah.
But on the dangerous part, Andy, I just want to say that the material is not dangerous at all. I mean, the whole story is not dangerous. You can read it in Battlefield Earth more or less. And the point is that
now hold on a second. Battlefield Earth, don't you mean Revolt in the Stars?
That's what I'm going to say. That's what I was going to say. Revolt in the Stars is basically a film manuscript by Hubbard, and that is the OT3, the super lethal, dangerous OT3 story, and the implant, and the whole science fiction story about that particular incident. That is all in Revolt in the Stars. And that was written. It was never published, but it was written like for a Hollywood film manuscript. By Hubbard, and he actually submitted it to various film producers, but it was never accepted. So it never materialized as a film, but it was his intention to make it into a Hollywood film, and that was the whole main things of the OT3 story, which is supposed to be lethal. So did he want? Was it just rubbish, or did he want to kill? I mean, everybody seeing the movie. You know what I mean?
Well, this is what the story they were saying. By that stage, enough OTs had run out the incident so that it wasn't as lethal and dangerous, and he wanted more people to watch it in a movie so that it would run it out on them. And he basically says, is basically, I think, implying that it's been destimulated, so that's why people aren't dying by watching the movie or whatever. Now, I mean, I don't know what to make of that, but
I haven't heard.
I heard the GO, right, in the late 60s and early 70s, more than once, I think, did some operations where they had some SPs and they intentionally did put on a play, like a theater production or something, and acted out the OT3 event. And they were doing it to key in those SPs, which is obviously a dodgy thing to do. It's kind of like a shifty intelligence agency operation. But anyway, they did it. But the thing is, I haven't heard if it actually sent them crazy or if any of them died from watching that OT3 event. See, if I heard back from a good source that when they put on the theater production in 1971 or whatever of OT3, if I heard that people actually got sick and died or actually went weird, I would be like, whoa, that would really make me believe the OT3 story.
But they don't.
Well, yeah, I haven't heard. I will. I just heard from someone, I can't remember where it was, but it was from like 2 different people that, yeah, they put on this production of OT3 or whatever. It might have been Captain Bill who mentioned it once. And it was intended to mess up these SPs at this event. But the person who said the story didn't say, oh yeah, and after it, people died or anything. He just said they did that. And so if anyone knows the truth about that, if it actually did send these people crazy, I would love to know.
I have never heard about that story, but I have told the OT3 story to a number of people, and none of them has gone ill or sick or anything. It's just a sci-fi story, and there's nothing to it. It's not lethal. There was an episode of
South Park.
Was it The Simpsons or something
South
like that?
Park.
Huh?
South Park.
South Park, that's right. Yes, and then there was an episode where they actually made
dramatized it.
They once again.
They dramatized it. Like
it was quite well done. I mean, they really captured the whole essence of the thing. And I just heard, that millions of people see that. And if anybody got sick, I'm sure we would hear about it from that particular thing or dramatize anything. It's just not dangerous. It's just bullshit. The whole thing is that Hubbard was a dramatic person, and he wanted to market his new, really super hot OT levels, like he did, when he tried to sell some novel before Dynetics, sci-fi novel. It was also something like he told the story that he showed this manuscript to the publisher, and the publisher just jumped out the window and killed himself because it was so dangerous. It's just a dramatic way of trying to sell himself and sell his bullshit. You know what I mean? So it's only marketing. It's nothing else but marketing. It's not dangerous. I spoke to a number of people about these things, told them about it. Nothing ever happens to them. I mean, it's utter rubbish. So it's not dangerous at all. So that's not why people go crazy when they audit on the OT levels. That's an entirely different.
Well, look, if he's got the DC, he's saying it's enough people have run it out, so it's dissimulated and stuff. But here's the thing.
But the whole thing is, Andy. The whole thing is, if you haven't run it, what does it matter that a few hundred other people?
No, because he's saying that the collective mind, we're all connected. Our minds are all connected and stuff, and so it's all like. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, you can basically spin anything. It's just how many people? Look. We are 7 billion people on Earth, and maybe a couple of thousand has run this incidents. I mean, it's like
it's not enough. Well, look. If people were getting a little bit, just a tiny bit weird after watching a South Park thing, then that would make sense because we'd see it get run out more, and as the years go on, would have some sort of evidence of people getting less and less affected by it. But it just seems that there's no effect at all. Like people,
there's no effect at all. There's no effect at all.
There's just none. There's no sickness.
Nothing.
So I don't know what the hell the deal is with that, but I would. Yeah, I don't know. But didn't David Mayo say that he thought the OT3 wasn't real?
I haven't heard that. I heard him say that he didn't know at what point you would actually get OT levels or get OT abilities. He could not say that you would get OT abilities at any point, or if you even ever will get them. But I haven't heard about his views on OT3. He was actually involved in developing the OT5 with Hubbard.
Yeah.
But later on, he was busted by Hubbard, and Hubbard wanted rid of him. So I don't know what he said. I mean, I don't know what his position is in the later years, but to me, it's just another marketing stunt from Hubbard. And the whole confidentiality thing is to make it into something really expensive and really exclusive.
Mysterious.
And there was a whole operation from Hubbard. He wanted exclusive stuff, which was secret, which was exciting, which was like hidden. And there was a whole way he went about doing his thing. So there's nothing more to it. It's not dangerous or anything like that. But if you start auditing on these levels, and you asked me before, how is it audited? And I can and as I said, OT1.
Oh, hold on a second. Can I quickly cut in before this?
Sure.
I just want to say that you're on a good thing, but I think what happens is that somebody, it's in their head. Like they've been so brainwashed into thinking that something bad will happen if they read it, that they create it themselves. Because when I went to first read it, when I first left the church, I was like fully brainwashed, sort of. And I like felt like interbulated starting to look at it. And then I thought, hold on a second, I'm just making this up in my mind. Like if you think you can create your own reality, right? If you believe that your thoughts create your own reality. So I was just like, well, I'm God or whatever. I can just create my own reality and I won't let this affect me. And so then I read it. But when I started to read it, before I had this cognition, I felt like interbulated by it. And so I think that people are creating it themselves because they've just been so brainwashed.
Well, of course, if you've been told it enough times that this is top secret and you are not up to it and it's dangerous for you and you can get sick and so on, you start believing in it. Of course, then it is a little bit of
it's psychosomatic.
Yeah, very much so. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you get harmed from reading it. It just means that you are a bit interpolated by actually doing something that you think is dangerous. But
yeah, it's like walking near the edge of a building or something like that, a high up building.
Yeah, and you believe that there's a long fall, but it's just half a meter, so it's nothing. But you believe you'll fall like 100 meters and you'll kill yourself. Then you'll feel a little bit dizzy, a little bit frightened from walking there. So that's the same thing. But on the why people can really go nuts on these things, I understand very much myself, because when you start auditing all these entities or these demons, you might call them, Hubbard called them body thetans, which is a spirit, individual spirit, which is not you, which is attached to you or to your body. And it has a life entity just like yourself, and it has its own thoughts and considerations and everything. And it can go destructive on you, and you think that it's your own thoughts and stuff, and it can really start spinning you. And the point is that if you audit this material, you have to believe it. If you don't believe it, you can't audit it. Yeah. So in order to get anything from this process, you have got to study it and to really get into it and start believing it, because otherwise it won't work at all. It'll do nothing for you. It'll just be like nothing is happening. You need to believe it. That's the criteria for actually running it. So when you start...
So hold on. So it's like somebody has got, they're like creating an imaginary friend or whatever, and they keep on creating it and keep on thinking it. And then to them, when they hear a voice or whatever, it's like they've created that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and you need to create it, and you can do that. I mean, your imagination, you can do lots of stuff.
Yeah, because I had my twin back when I was involved with the church. His mum had gone insane, and she'd done the OT levels, and she was like, I think, hearing voices or something, and she was she didn't want to leave the house or something like that because she was scared of ghosts or whatever. And she'd gone crazy on the OT levels.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that you're saying that she went crazy not because the actual tech was out or Hubbard came up with a crappy way of dealing with entities. You're saying that she went crazy because she created it psychosomatically herself.
Yeah, she would have to. Otherwise you can't run it. Nothing will happen. So you need to believe the story. You need to experience. But you can tell yourself a lot of stuff. You can mock up anything really, and you need to do that. So you basically, let's say you sit on your solo session on OT3, and you mock up a demon or body thing, and you start talking to it. You can easily do that. There's nothing wrong. You can just mock up some
it's
kind
imagination,
of living
because
person.
The person's already done lots of Dianetics before this, and that's essentially, you're going into potential imagination land in that.
Yeah, you do. So you're already into it. So now you need to mock up a specific, instead of it's just an incident, which is some kind of dead thing. This is a living thing being here and now with you and communicating to you. So you need to mock up that, so that you actually exercise it. You exercise. You're working. There's even drills on the OT3 course, on the theory part of the OT3. There's even drills where you have to mock up positions of entities around your space, and you need to so you it's an exercise. So you train in it. You learn how to do this. Now you think you're learning how to spot these demons, but you're really learning how to mock them up. So now you got well trained. So now it's really real for you. This is universe.
Now, but hold on a second.
So universe is getting really real, and now you start auditing it, and then the results that you're read about, how they react when you address them, how you can audit them, what questions you can ask, what reads to expect on the e-meter. That whole thing starts happening because you learned and you expect it to happen. So this is what's going to happen. So that will happen. It's really a matter of, it's a training drill. So now when you go in session and these things happen, then you think, that was my evidence. This is true. This is actually happening.
Yeah, but the e-meter isn't a way of... Yeah, the e-meter isn't a way of... Because you can FN, you can be like a criminal and you can reincarnate and you can think you're on Hubbard and you can FN on that. So the e-meter isn't like a way of telling the truth or not, because I've had some other situation where I've heard where it's just not... I don't know if it's a very verifiable tool for things.
The e-meter, I mean,
e-meter reads and stuff.
The funny thing about it is that that e-meter is actually measuring what happens between your skin and your leather skin, not what happens between your two hands and in your brain or whatever. Because if you peel off the outer layer of skin, you get to a very wet underlayer of skin. And when you connect to that, there's 100% connection between the cans. It's just like water. Poof. There's total 100% connection. So it's actually measuring what happens in your fingers, not in your mind. But it could be affected by thoughts you have. I'm not denying that. Other kind of therapies are using instruments like that, or like the lie detector. It can do something, but it's not like proving anything. It's just saying that here is some kind of reaction, whatever it could be.
I think Hubbard said you can run imaginary incidents and run imaginary engrams, so you can get reads and stuff off imaginary incidents, isn't there? Like I swear, there's stuff written by Hubbard saying you can run someone on imaginary engrams and they'll get wins or something like that, and they'll get reads, and it's imaginary.
I think you're right. I don't remember the exact reference, but I heard that too. So that is probably correct.
So the person. Sorry for cutting in. Anyway, go on.
No. But the whole thing is that what is it that makes the e-meter react, and what does it mean? That's totally arbitrary. But you are trained into thinking that it means something specific.
Yeah. So the e-meter reads as to what you think. So if you really think and you like the idea of being the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, you can get the e-meter to FN on that question.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. And I think that there seems to be a big problem in the church with like this natural clear idea and past life clear, and all these people in the late 70s and 80s, and it continued on. When they got declared that, I think it was just because they liked the cool idea of being a natural clear and a past life clear. It makes you real special, like, wow, And so like they FN at that idea, like, wow, I'm the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard. I'm a natural clear. Wow. So when they're holding on to the meter, they FN because they like that idea of freaking well being a natural clear. They'll be so cool. You know what I mean? I'm special. Yeah. We had all these people were FNing, but they weren't showing signs of being clear. They were running into problems and stuff. So the e-meter isn't a way of testing these things,
It is not, and I can tell you a funny little story. I once had one guy on the purification rundown, and he totally EP'd on it. I mean, he was like flying when he was running after the sauna, and he has been on it for like a month, and he was flying. He could not touch the ground. He totally EP'd on the purification rundown, and I sat him down with the meter. I was working in DKO, and this was one of the missions. So I took the train out there a couple of hours to that mission, and I had to put him down on the meter and get the completion before Thursday 2. So he totally EP'd. He was smiling. He was like flying. He couldn't sit there still. He was like totally on the full EP of any run.
Did he look like he was healthy? Like his skin was clear and stuff?
Yeah, everything. He was one of the good success stories from purification, of which there are also many. But the funny thing is that I put him on the meter and he didn't have an FN. He was laughing and he was just so happy and he was flying and he said it was the most fantastic thing. And he told about this experience when he EP'd and he was out running and everything. And there's nowhere near an FN. There's nothing.
Yeah, I had my first floating tone arm when I didn't feel keyed out. I felt pissed off. I was like, I mean, my cognition, I think, was intelligent and good. So maybe I felt good about that, but I was pissed off. I wasn't like, I thought the floating tone arm would be like, oh, you feel high or something like that. Like, oh, yeah, because some people, when they do Scientology, they just like, oh, yeah, it's so keyed out and stuff. I thought that would be like a floating tone arm, but I was just like the way I guess I am now, but more like boom, 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 cogniting. But like, I was pissed off. I wasn't in, I was like Alex Jones ranting, and then I had a floating tone arm.
Yeah, exactly. So it's totally arbitrary.
Yeah. And we've got the ARC break needle, the ARC break FN, where this person's FNs, but they're feeling really, really bad.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't mean anything. You can put into it whatever you want. But going back to the auto levels, Andy, just to answer that one, or at least my view on it, is that when you are into this synthetic universe created by Hubbard, and you're so much into it that you can actually run the processes and see, read and feel pressure areas and get thoughts and ideas and correspondence with the demons and the whole thing, then you're pretty well into his sick universe. And you are running it for like many hours. I mean, I think I was running OT3 for 100 hours, something like that, doing this same exercise hour and after hour after hour, day after day after day. You get so much into it that you are really, you're screwing with your mind, because to you it becomes more and more realistic that this is the way things are. This is real. This is
okay. Now hold on a second. Now, when you go out after doing these sessions, how does that make you be crazy? Because some people seem to go crazy. So explain to me that.
Because you start getting communications and getting strange ideas and so on from all your demons, and you think you need to fight those.
So it's like you're creating a demon circuit in your mind, like the Engram 1950s idea of a demon circuit. It's like you're feeding it and creating one in your mind, and then you walk out in everyday life and you have a demon circuit going now. Is that right?
Yeah, or there's something else wrong with you, and you just can't get rid of it. So now these things start to multiply. You get more and more. I remember one of Hubbard's neighbors once told a story that this guy, Hubbard, he was a lunatic. He would scream that there are many more BTs and clusters. I mean, this neighbor was not Scientology, he didn't know what BTs and clusters was. But he said Hubbard would run screaming, say there's many more BTs and clusters than we ever expect. They are coming after us and so on. And he kept auditing for years and years to get rid of all these terrible things.
Now, when was this? When did Hubbard say this? When did this neighbor hear him?
Once again?
When did this neighbor hear Hubbard say that?
That was when he lived on the ranch in what was called Santa Margarita, I think it was called, in San Francisco area. He lived in that ranch in seclusion for in the early 80s. So do you think 86 when he died? So do
you think he might have sent himself crazy by his own creation?
I think that Hubbard himself also went totally crazy. He was like paranoid from dust and so on. He thought all the dust particles was BTs and clusters. So he was totally paranoid and totally, and that's the state of mind you can get into.
Yeah, and this makes sense because when you study his personal life, this is why studying the personal life helps you to understand the religion he created, because you find out that he might have been an alcoholic, and that changes things massively. You find out other dodgy things about him, and it's like the severe reality adjustments. There's this explosion of anger over things that aren't even that you shouldn't get angry about. So then you start to understand, oh, he might have been a bit of a nutter. You know what I mean? And then that makes sense that he would then create a way. Then, like, people think that when you're a Scientologist, you think that he's perfect, and you have to understand, no, that's the sales line. That's the character he was mocking up, but he wasn't perfect. And then you go, oh, so maybe he created a fucked up way of dealing with entities, or maybe the entities aren't true. But other groups deal with entities, though. So what do you think about entities in general?
What I think about entities is that whatever, I mean, entities, I don't put any more importance to them than I put to people, or your neighbors, your colleagues, whatever. If they bother you, it's just like when your neighbor is bothering you, you need to find out why is that happening.
Yeah, but do you think they're real?
Yeah, I think entities can be as real as anything else.
No,
I don't think
not real, because
for me it's not like they definitely don't exist. Many funny phenomena exist, and you can call it an entity or a BT or a demon or whatever. I do think that all kind of phenomena can exist. Yes, I definitely do.
So that's interesting, because when you study insane people, they seem to have problems with communications with ghosts and stuff, and they're like and stuff. I think that it's too weird how that it happens too often. That, you know, psychiatry has noticed how often these insane people are hearing voices and stuff. To me, it doesn't seem like it's just made up. It seems like, yeah, maybe there actually are entities out there. And some of the stuff, the communications that these insane people get are strange. It's like they're not making it up, because it's like, why would they? It's weird. So there's something there. But when you hear about the OT levels, you just think, yeah, but why the fuck would you want to deal with entities? I don't want to deal with entities. I don't want to communicate with them. I mean, if they are these implanted pieces of shit, ghosts or whatever, why would I want to deal with a piece of shit entity? You know, I want to deal with like beings that are decent and good and stuff, not these scummy entities. And when
but the whole principle of that is that, like when you are pre-clear, you have engrams, and engrams are bothering you, and the way to get rid of them is to run them and erase the incidents.
Yeah, but why don't you just ignore them?
On the chain, and then you're rid of this.
Yeah, but why don't you ignore
problem.
them? Why don't you just ignore them and stop putting attention on them and focus on getting healthy and doing other things, and then they'll go away.
But that's a viewpoint. But the whole idea of why you can't just ignore them is that they are blocking you from becoming a free spirit, and you need to run them like you run an engram and get rid of them, because with them you will never be able to be free, because they are a barrier to your freedom.
Okay, but that's
a sales line. Okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it makes sense or whatever. But what's happening? Because it seems like it's not working in Scientology. Is it because people are getting obsessed with them? Are they just doing it too much?
Yes, they are getting obsessed with it, and they are keep going at it for hundreds, maybe sometimes thousands of hours. And you know, they keep. I'm not saying that all entities or demons are mock-ups, but I'm saying that a heck of a lot of it is mock-ups, because you get a new CS of running something else, then you go in session and you need to run it till EP. Then the next time you have a new CS, you need to run something else, and you have to go there and run it. So you'll be on it for years, and you are into this mind exercise where everything is getting more and more detached from reality and from real life, and it's just happening in your own mind. You're introverting
yourself, and you're sending yourself crazy by introverting yourself. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, utterly crazy, and there's so many examples of that.
So it's like the opposite.
It's not because they read the material. That's not where it happens. It happens when they've been on it for a while.
Yeah,
They keep fighting, and the thing is, Andy, they don't go OT. Some of them never get an OT experience or anything specific. It's just like they have to work and they do the same thing over and over and over and over and over, and at some point they just go nuts.
Yeah, so it's the opposite of it's the opposite of objectives. So objectives is like to get your attention out there and stop being introverted and look at reality and just wake you up in your environment and see things from different points of views.
Yeah.
This is like the complete opposite of that, and it's introverting you and creating psychosomatic illnesses and fucking people up.
Yeah, utterly fucking up, and you get crazy from it. You get
crazy. Okay, what about people who just do it for a short amount of time, like what you do in Ron's or whatever? Because I've heard that some people in the church or whatever, that they would say the first 6 months it was all right, but after that it started getting worse. So what do you think about doing it for a short amount of time?
I think that could be okay. I mean, like with many of Scientology tools, like Dianetics auditing, if you do it for a specific problem, I mean, I have sit with a PC who had a specific problem, and I ran him on Dianetics and erased the engram, and that was it. The problem, he didn't wet his bed anymore. Bingo, like that. It took me 2 hours, and we should just stop there, because that's it. That solves that specific problem, and that is good. That's nice. There are many other tools than Dianetics and Scientology who can do the same, but Dianetics can do something, Scientology can do something, but it should be limited to that particular thing and not taken in out of context and being made into something that can create a state, like a state of clear or state of OT, or, you know, this is total rubbish. This is how about sales lines. It can't do that, but it can help a specific problem now and then, not all the time. But I mean, I've done it with several PCs myself, so I can vouch for it. I've seen it happening. I've seen it working, but it has a lot of limitations, and it doesn't create these fantastic levels and the fantastic state of mind. It doesn't do that. Okay,
so is that why people spend so long on it? Because the EP that's required is unachievable. Like, what the hell is the EP of the different thingos that you have to do, and why aren't people achieving it?
Well, EP from OT3 is free from overwhelm, whatever that means. That you as a spiritual being cannot be overwhelmed anymore. That's the EP. But you know, who is to tell whether you can be overwhelmed at any point in your life?
Okay, what about the one where I think it's OT7, is it, or where they're on it for ages? What's the EP of that?
That's called course over life. So you basically course over your life.
So these people ordered it for ages and ages, and they just feel like they don't get that EP, so they just keep on staying on it.
Or they feel they get the EP and the CS tells them they haven't. It's totally arbitrary.
Why would the CS tell them they haven't?
Because they want to make money. There's a whole big money machine, Andy.
What about at Ron's org then? What about the EP at Ron's org?
The EPs are the same. EPs are the same, but as Ron's org is not a money machine, then they let you attest when you tell them that you feel you have reached an EP, and you say, I'm done. I feel like this and this and that, and then you go in the meter, and if you have a floating needle, they'll let you attest. It's not a money machine like the church.
Okay, so the sales line in the free zone is that Ron's org has fixed up the OT levels, and they've got their special Excalibur and stuff. You've done it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the difference between their OT levels and their fixing up and the churches?
Basically, the main difference is that in Ron's org on Captain Bill's OT levels, the assumption is that your case is organized, that there is a pattern. You know, you can take from like an org board, and there's a main holder of a whole cluster and so on. So you can basically address it more or less like you do with an org board. So that there is an organized structure in your case. That's the main difference from the church version. And there are more. It's not only a cluster and a BT. They also have a stack and other kind of terms. So it's a bit more extensive than the church version. It's when you study both of them, it seems like the church version is very limited, whereas Captain Bill's has like spread it out and made it much broader. But the process is the same. You end up addressing demons and trying to order them to leave you, basically. So the whole process and the basic principle is the same. Now, in Ron's org, when I was running Excalibur, at some point I started feeling more and more detached from real life, and I felt, this is not doing me any good. I'm getting headaches all the time, and it's getting really tough running. And
it's interesting. How are you getting headaches? How is it creating it? It makes me think that Is it because of is it psychosomatic? You just did it yourself, or is it coming from the entities?
No, I don't think it comes from the entities at all. It comes from the effort you put into creating all these entities and creating and keep mucking up this whole universe that you need to muck up in order to audit it. So you need to muck up the whole thing, then you can audit something, and then it goes away. You know, so where does it leave you? Back to square zero.
Exactly. It's like,
you,
why muck
you
it up
mucked
in
up
the first
something
place?
negative, you audit it, and then you're back to, so nothing happens, you know? And,
Yeah.
and that effort you put into it, just for me, created headaches. Like just like when you have to read a different piece of paper or something you can't understand, and you need to understand it, and you just read and read and read. You can get a headache from that as well. So it's basically a headache that's caused by your effort put into creating and unmucking and mucking up and unmucking. It is a ridiculous exercise, and it brings you absolutely nowhere, and it gives you no OT abilities or anything like that.
Well, look what happened to Captain
Bill. It just
Bill.
gets into a heavy state, and at the end, I said, okay, I can feel this is harming me. It's not doing me any good. I'm done with this whole exercise. So I went to the CS and said, I'm done. And they put me on the meter, and I didn't feel happy, but I had I had an FN, and I attested the level.
That's exactly what we were talking about. We were just talking about that.
I was not flying at all.
Huh?
I was not flying at all. You know, I was just like had a little bit of a headache, and I said I had enough. So I went there and said, I feel I've completed, and they asked me some questions, and they said, you have a floating needle, and here you go, you can attest to Excalibur, and so I did.
Because look what happened to Captain Bill. I mean, he ended up getting cancer or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Which, again, it's such a common occurrence. It's such a common occurrence, and also and you can say, oh, maybe it's because of smoking cigarettes or something, but then he didn't try and get better or anything. Apparently, he just gave up and just let himself die. Yeah. Now, what the fuck? This is like the opposite of OT. You know what I mean? This is like this contributes to your idea of the OT levels. It the idea that it actually sends someone crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Captain Bill also a total nuthead.
Yeah, he was a tranny. He was a tranny. People don't know that. You know what I mean? Like exactly. He just didn't transition. He just like dressed up every now and then. Like, but he was a tranny.
Which he's welcome to be that. I mean, that doesn't bother me, but he was totally nuts.
That's a psych thing. That's a psych thing. I mean, psychology has been infiltrated by the left, and they've tried to cover up that the gays and gender thing isn't a problem and stuff. But you go into history and you look into it, and it's like these are actual problems that people have. They're mental problems or they're physical body problems, but they're not a healthy, normal person.
No, of course not. Of course not. That's not how we are built. So for sure, but it doesn't bother me. It's just he was just a totally madman, and his wild adventures he's telling about and so on. He was kind of the same type of person as Hubbard, I think.
Yeah,
but he did not become OT at all, and Hubbard didn't either. I mean, they became more and more crazy, both of them.
Yeah, Well, I was going to say something good. Oh, we'll take, for example, the stories he tells about the Markabians. It's like he's gotten some idea from Hubbard about Markabians, and he got real obsessed with it. And he was saying that LRH was, this is in the early 80s, while we know that LRH was in California and he was writing Mission Earth and singing that song, that album that they made. Like we know what he was doing, but Captain Bill said that he was communicating with the mothership or something like that, and like talking with aliens or something like that. And it's like, what the fuck? I mean, this to me is somebody who's running imaginary incidents. Like he's gotten an idea and he's believed it more and more and more, and then he writes his sector ops bulletins.
Yeah, totally. It's a mock-up.
So when
you go into it and try to make it your own mock-up, it'll make you crazy as well.
Yeah, so when you're reading the sector ops bulletins, you're reading, which you can get pretty easily, and they're interesting. Like you're reading someone who's actually gone a bit nutty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because I look into the whole UFO subject. It's a real deep subject. It's ufology. It's a full-on thing you can study, and it's like, where the hell did Captain Bill get this stuff from? It's like, what the fuck? This is his imagination. Like, he's just running with it. You know, like, it's like, it doesn't, there's the evidence in ufology doesn't really back up what he's saying in the sector ops bulletin. He also said something that, like, there was this free zone decree that, like, the evil aliens will stop interfering with Earth. And it was like in 1984 or something. And then after that, you get all this evidence for fucking, well, there's still evil influencing Earth and stuff, and still aliens and all this shit when you look into ufology. And it's like, where's the evidence? It's like, there was no free zone decree, man. It's like, it's almost like by 1991 or whatever, when he died, it was like there was enough evidence out that discredited himself. So he was in apathy or something, you know?
Yeah, probably was. But there's another funny thing that also, it's nothing big, but I just laughed because it's so funny that when Hubbard explains about the OC3 incidents, that they captured spirits on other planets also, and they brought them all to Earth, which he calls that TGAC, the blue planet, and they will bring them to, they'll freeze them down, capture them and freeze them down as spirits, and bring them to planet Earth, TGAC, in spaceships that looks mostly like modern DC-8s.
Yeah, that's just unheard of. The spaceships are never in the shape of a modern DC-8.
Because what makes a DC-8 fly?
Yeah,
air.
The shape of it.
Air does make the DC-8 or any other aircraft fly, and the shape of the wings is what creating the pressure. Only when it's in air. If it's not in air, the wings would do nothing.
UFOs
so
are usually
shape of the DC-8 is meant to fly in air, not out in space.
UFOs are like ball shape. Yeah, I know. UFOs are like ball shape, or they're like disc shape. I full on believe in aliens. I've full on looked into it. It's real. And there's sometimes some shapes that are like the ones on Star Trek, the big motherships. They seem to actually, like, honestly, like the stuff in Star Trek and Star Wars, they're full on our aliens out there that float around the universe in ships like that, you know? And so it's like, yeah, it's just...
But a DC-8 is meant and designed to fly in air. And that's why the wings are shaped as they are. It's because there's got to be air. And the jet engine is working in air, and the whole, because you heat the air, take the cold air in, you heat it up, and it becomes warm, and it expands.
And
the whole principle of a DC-8 is to fly in air, not in space. It's just so funny.
Exactly.
Why say that? I mean, that's an obvious flaw, you know?
Aliens don't use craft that rely on air stuff. Aliens use it. It's like a whole different type of technology and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. But David Mayo said, I swear somewhere he said that he thinks that LRH could have been completely wrong about the OT3 incident.
Yeah.
And this is David Mayo, who's been around the tech for years and years and years, and he was very respected and high IQ and everything. And he also, when he met Hubbard and stuff, he wasn't that impressed with him. And he also invented solo knots, and solo knots just seemed to be something to fix up what the fucked up OT levels created, because L. Ron Hubbard nearly killed himself in the late 70s. You know how he nearly died? Because he was like, and David Mayo came and saved the day. And solo knots... Yeah, solo knots...
stroke out in the desert, yeah.
And solo knots was there to... Solo knots helped save him, right? But the question is, what was he doing before that to put him in this bad condition? And maybe he should stop doing that. Maybe what he was doing was faulty and wrong, you know? So it's not like, oh, solo knots are really awesome. It's like, well, hold on a second. Solo knots is just putting a Band-Aid on something that's fucked up. How about not doing the thing that's fucked up?
Yeah. And yes, that's one thing. The other thing is that did not save Ron. I mean, you don't know that. We don't know if that was it, or it just got over his stroke. I mean, he
couldn't even save himself. It seems like he got murdered. He got murdered out there in the desert. He was already old, but I've looked into it, and Miscavige and shit murdered him. He was hanging out with Pat Broker. Miscavige, who's like clearly this tyrant, right? This aggressive mafia tyrant. And then you've got Pat Broker, who was an alcoholic and stuff, and Hubbard was hanging out with them and stuff. Like, they're the people he chose to be around him. And then also Captain Bill, who was a tranny, and he gave a carcan to. right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what the so like oh wow, like it's like he chose the most noblest it's just like what the hell? Like you chose those people to be around? Like what the hell? I mean, look, there is a lot of evidence for him possibly being an SP, for L. Ron Hubbard himself for being an SP.
I'm sure he was. For sure he was. I'm not in doubt about that.
He was sending people crazy. People were going crazy on these OT levels. Like he criticizes the psychs for sending people crazy with their mental technology. He created mental technology that gave a lot of people cancer.
Absolutely, and he was incredibly evil. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He was incredibly evil. But so was Mary Sue, you know. So it was like just the whole company, the whole thing was just totally nuts. But yes, Hubbard, I'm sure he was a psychopath. There's no two ways about it. Of course he was. I mean, that way. I mean, the whole idea of overboarding people, like throwing people out from the Apollo when they couldn't pass the exams, even elderly people who couldn't swim and so on. I mean, he just didn't give a crap, and he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it.
And it makes sense.
So, and he would beat up people. He would do all kind of really, and he would lock up this boy in the anchor room. And I mean, it's just hundreds and hundreds of incidents of him doing incredibly evil stuff that no decent person could ever get himself to do. You know?
Yeah. Look, when you look at all the evidence, it makes more sense to think of it from the point of view of L. Ron Hubbard actually being a bit of an SP. But like, I don't think things are that simple. Not a bit of an SP.
He was a full psychopath.
Yeah, but I don't think things are that simple though. I think it's a mixture of like for me personally in my life, he hasn't been an SP, but for other people, he totally has been an SP. But I guess that's the same with like other SPs. They're like, for some people, they're not an SP, but for other people, they are SPs. You know what I mean? It goes into the definition of what is an SP, and it's like, anyway, it's technicalities and stuff, but he certainly.
Yeah, but you could easily know a psychopath of which you weren't effect, so he wouldn't be a SP to you. He could still be a psychopath or a sociopath. But if you are not effect of the person because it doesn't bother you, then to you it's not a problem. But that doesn't mean that guy is healthy in his mind, and Hubbard definitely wasn't.
And that would make sense why he would be hanging out with an alcoholic, and because Pat Broker wasn't just an alcoholic, he was also, I think, stealing money from him, and like he was dodgy and changing policies and like anyway, it's interesting. I think that I think he was both. I think he's a riddle. I think he has a really good side to him and also a really bad side. And he's just, things aren't, we like to put him into easy categories of this person's good or bad. And I think it's like, no, he doesn't fit into that category. And also he liked Crowley's stuff, and Crowley, I think, did sacrifices and stuff and was having lots of weird sexual things and stuff. So Crowley's pretty out there as well.
Oh yes, very much so. Yeah, he refers to him as my friend, Alistair Crowley. But the thing was, he was not friends with him. I think he nicked his girlfriend or something like that, and they were not friends. But Alistair Crowley definitely didn't like Hubbard.
No, it was Parsons who he took the girlfriend of.
Was that Parsons? Yeah, this guy, this rocket scientist.
Yeah, Parsons was like a mission holder, a mission holder for Thelema, Crowley's religion. You can think of it that way. And anyway, it's just like, whoa, but he was a fiction writer, so he created this character called L. Ron Hubbard, this amazing being, and a lot of it is people just buy into this character, you know. Anyway, so what about? Can you just quickly show me how you would do it at one of these OT levels?
Well, you would on OT1, for instance, it's basically some easy drills. Mock up something you have.
No. One of these entity ones. One of these entity ones. Like, how do you communicate? Can you do one right now?
Well, I would find on OT3. I would find a pressure area. That's the first thing. Scan your body for a pressure area. So if you felt some kind of pressure here, which I did, I would say, okay, that pressure is a BT.
Now, hold on a second. That's where the pineal gland is. And when you wake yourself up spiritually and stuff, that's possibly your pineal activating in that. And that's not a bad thing. Because I had this happen years ago when I went through my awakening. Randomly, I was getting pressure in my forehead and I thought there was something wrong with me. And then I found out all these other people, when they start going through an awakening experience, they get this pressure as well. So that's, anyway, I just want to say that's not a bad thing. That's like actually that your pineal's activating and that you're evolving.
Yeah. But that's in OT3 is considered a BT or cluster.
Yeah.
And you can have pressure areas, all places on your body, basically. And so you need to scan over, like just feel. And then once
hold
you
on
find
a second. You could have just worked and you could have had a pressure area from like a sore knee or something from working out your knee.
Yeah, definitely. Anything. And that pressure area, you address it like mentally. You don't talk to it loud, but you address it mentally. And you, once again,
can you say what you would say in your head? I
don't remember, and it's so many years ago. But you have to find out. You have to get in touch with it, and you ask it. You ask it where it is from, and there are different locations on the planet. Where these OT3 incidents happened, like Las Palmas or Hawaii or different places. And the funny thing is that 75 million years ago, they were not there because the whole tectonic plates and everything has moved since then. But Howard didn't know that. So he had his favorite locations for implants was Hawaii and Las Palmas, which is on the Canary Islands. I think he sailed there when he had Apollo. And Hawaii, he also been to over there in the near the Caribbean.
Oh, so can I quickly say something as well? Hubbard also had cigarette addiction, which is nicotine addiction. He had Coca-Cola addiction, which is caffeine addiction.
I never heard about Coca-Cola, but he loved drinking rum.
Okay, yeah, and apparently he might have had an alcohol addiction. I've still got to look into that.
I think he had,
yes. Yeah, but he also had bad teeth as well. So he's just, he's full of outpoints and stuff. Like why would you have really, really bad teeth and stuff? I mean, it's like you've been drinking too much Coca-Cola, but he just shows classic signs of being a caffeine addiction, because caffeine is a drug. It's just that we're used to it, but it is a drug. And nicotine is also a drug. I tried a nicotine lozenge once, and I tried 2 of them because I was like, I want to see what nicotine as a drug is like. And I felt fucked up. I was in a library and I was like, whoa, like I was dizzy and I was like, this is a drug. You know, this is a freaking drug, because he criticizes drug addicts and all that sort of stuff. And it's like he was a drug addict of his own type, and most people are drug addicts, you know. Anyway, go on.
Where do you come from, Andy?
You were talking about the Canary Islands and Hubbard.
Oh yeah. So we would ask that pressure area, you consider it to be a living thing, a demon, a BT, a spirit, whatever, that's stuck on you for some reason. And the reason is the incident that happens 75 million years ago with the explosions on volcanoes and all kind of electronic implants and stuff. And that would happen someplace on planet Earth. So you need to do a locate, like in Scientology called date locate, when you find a date for an incident and a location for an incident. But since we have the date already 75 million years ago, we can skip that part and just go straight to the locate. So you would run a little list of locations, whereas there's the Hawaii area and there's the Las Palmas area, and there could be different other volcanoes and so on. And then you would start addressing the pressure area with asking about that, and then you would go into the running of the incident. So you find out the location, and then you start intending that pressure area through the whole incident of OT3, which is the famous one is called incident 2, which is the one with all the volcanoes and stuff. And if that doesn't make the pressure area relief, then you go to incident 1, which is like billions of years back on the track, and is a different thing where basically where the whole thing was created with the angels and all that kind of stuff. So it's just
but how do you go back to incident 2 or incident 1? Like, do you do you sit there and run it out like an engram or something?
Yes, you do. You say you don't say it out loud as you do on OT2. On OT2, you run it out. You just say these things, all these dichotomies. You say them aloud, and until the email doesn't read anymore. But on OT3, you speak like intent. So you don't say any words physically. You just intend it through the incident. You look at the meter and you asked it whether it was Hawaii or Las Palmas, and then you get a read, and then you say, okay, go to the incident 75 million years ago on Las Palmas, okay? And then you intend it through, you think of all this ingredients of that incident, from the frozen down, transported to Earth, placed on volcanoes, big bomb,
now, hold on a second.
explosion.
According to the tech, are you supposed to sit there and run through the incident, and that is running it out? Is that what you're supposed to do?
Yes. So you basically help it to run through the incident by thinking through the incident while you have your attention on that pressure area. Okay.
Oh,
so
okay. So you're helping
all
the
the elements in the incident, the whole story, basically, why you have focused concentration on that particular pressure area. That is supposed to take the demon through the incident.
Yeah.
And run him
so
free
it's
of
like
that
it's like
implant.
Dianetics. It's like Dianetics, but you got a friend sitting next to you, and you're like helping run the incident for the friend or something.
Yeah, except on Dianetics, you ask the person, and he tells you about the incident. He tells you when it was, and where it was, and what happened.
So you're
Here's the other way around.
forcibly.
Here's a fixed thing, and you need to intend it through.
Yeah. So you're
that
forcing
incident.
this entity to run this incident.
Yeah, this particular incident.
Okay.
And then you run it again and again, like Dianetics, until it blows. Or if it doesn't blow, there's various tools. You can take it to incident 1, which is earlier on the track. And there can be other tools also you can use. You can even run a PTS rundown. You can run out-int rundown. You can do different stuff on this pressure area until it leaves you, basically. And that's just the whole principle of how to run OC3, which is done, of course, in solo session. And then lots of things can happen. Many people have nothing happening whatsoever, and then need to be drilled more in the course room on how to do and so on.
So when you say that, when you say that, do you sort of mean they basically have to be better and better at mocking it up?
Yeah, exactly. They need to get more into the universe and really believe it and really mock it up because otherwise nothing happens when they go in session. And opposite me, when I went in session, a lot of things happens. I had a whole explosion in my head. Like I had.
But that makes me think it's real. That makes me think it's real.
Yeah, that can make you think it's real, because it does, to me at least, it does started a lot of things. I mean, I had all of a sudden headaches coming in different places in my head, like maybe 4 or 5 different headaches at the same time, headaches different places in my head. And they just turned on like that, and they got worse. And then some of them left me, and some of them came back, and it was just.
Yeah, but if
at some point, I almost exteriorized out of my body because it was so painful. But so I basically started seeing everything. The whole room turned like this, and the distance to my e-meter and worksheets just got like the whole thing turned around like that.
So you don't.
So think... I had a quite a grim experience on OT3, and these headaches, some of them would leave me, some of them would come back, and it was a total mess. And I went out of session, and I was absolutely not happy. It was terrible. It was a nightmare. So it has definitely started something, that's for sure.
That's crazy, man. That makes me think it's real, though. It makes me think you stimulated some actual entity and then you went crazy or something. Like,
yeah, but that's also, I'm not saying that entities are not real, that they don't exist. That's not what I'm saying, because something activated for me wildly. I mean, violently. So yes, it can set things off. And you know what? Many, even as we spoke about in the beginning, many other religious movements or therapy or beliefs have demons as part of their upper levels, so to speak. And as I said, even according to the Bible, even Jesus used exorcism. So demons is not something new. It's not something that Hubbard invented. It's been there for thousands of years. And it's been something that's been considered real. So I do believe that this is not just a mock-up. You know, and I had some experiences like the first session on OT3. So I'm not going to deny the existence of entities. There would not be. I mean, there wouldn't be me, because I don't think that I think that they can definitely exist, and there can be demons. There can be all kind of phenomena. But the problem is with Hubbard was that he was totally fixated on it, and if the whole level was supposed to was handling only that. So what if you have a guy who doesn't have any demons or doesn't have any problems with
That's
demons?
what I was thinking. Yeah. What about people who don't have demons?
But according to Hubbard, you have thousands of them, and they have to be there. And if you don't feel them and perceive them, it's because you're not sharp enough. And then you have to sharpen up until you start perceiving them. And
but look, it seems like some people naturally have a psychic ability to communicate with demons. Because I spoke to a good psychic once, because I tested him out. And he says the demons tell him like where to go in the traffic, and that they're everywhere, like ghosts or whatever. And so for him, he's got some natural ability to communicate with this other dimension or whatever. What if you got some dude that comes in and he's blunt, like spiritually blunt? He doesn't have these psychic abilities just naturally. So he wouldn't be affected by all these retarded things around him. No,
correct. And it could also be that you just don't have a problem with it. I mean, it could be that you can't perceive them, and it could also be that you don't have any, or you have very few, or you don't have problems with them. So why address something if that's not bothering you?
Exactly. Like
if you have to do that, otherwise that's the whole OT levels. It's all of the OT levels is built around that, and you need to order this for thousands of hours.
If you got someone in a psych ward, right, and they're going, oh, there's a ghost in the corner smoking a cigarette or something like that, then you'd say, okay, maybe that person needs to do their freaking OT levels. Like maybe they need to like learn how to just freaking well stop getting affected by them or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I have it was a funny experience. It was one of our, when I was a Scientologist, we had a couple friends, and she went into a car accident. And she was not OT. I think she was grade 0 or grade. So she was low on the grade chart, and I was OT 3 at that point. And she got into this car accident, and she got hurt, and she got a what do you call it? Concussion, is it called? Concussion.
Yeah.
I think it's concussion. And she was in hospital, and we went there to visit her, and she said, "It's amazing. There are so many spirits here. I mean, they are not unfriendly or evil or anything, but there are so many spirits here, and I feel them, and I sometimes talk to them. I mean, not aloud, and they are just here." And she had that for a couple of days, and then there was no connection anymore. But for her, it was like she's just saying, "Well, wow, it's like there are many of them here at this place."
So
and I was no free, so I thought, well, that's all BTs and clusters. But maybe they were not attached to her. Maybe they were not bothering her. But they were there, and she had, because of the concussion and the shock that she was in, she got temporarily some opening, so she could connect with them and perceive them, and that left her again. So it was only for a couple of days, and then she was normal, so to speak.
But there are kids who you can hear their stories, because I listened to something by a group called Access Consciousness, and they deal with entities as well. And the chick was talking about it, and she might have been one of the sort of creators of it. And she was saying how as a kid, she would like see ghosts and stuff. She just had this sixth sense. She had this ability. So it's like, it maybe Hubbard's one of these people that has this ability or whatever. So then of course he would create a religion that spends all this time dealing with these thingos. But for someone else who doesn't have that ability, they wouldn't bother creating an OT level that deals with an entity, because they're like, why should I have to do that? They're not in my reality anyway, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, but it seems like that some things are imaginary, but some things might actually be real entities. Like the same with engrams, where some things are imaginary and they're just mocking it up because they read it in the Dianetics book, and other things are actually, they might get into their real past life incident or something.
I think that is how it is in many cases, that you have some kind of truth in it, and then you build on that, you know, and then it goes into his own mock-up, but it's based on some kind of truth. I mean, definitely. If it hadn't any kind of truth in it, it would never be.
Exactly.
It wouldn't catch anybody. It would just be a story. It would be a book you read, and you would put it on the shelf, and that was exciting adventure.
Yeah, exactly. You'd go, this is just too ridiculous, and you'd put it down. But like, for example, in the Dianetics book, there's no mention of a circumcision engram, because that should definitely be an engram, because he talks about, you know, all these engrams. And so you'd think that one of the classic ones would be when someone gets circumcised. That should come up as an engram. But I haven't really heard any talk about that. Now, I think that's because he didn't put it in the book. If it was in the book, if he'd thought of it when he was writing the book, you would hear more people go, yeah, I ran out when I got circumcised and like it hurt so much, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But you haven't heard of any circumcision engram running, have you?
Never heard about it.
I can tell. See, I predicted that. I could just tell, because it's just, I think a lot of it's, you know, but probably have you heard of attempted abortion ones?
Attempted abortions?
Yeah. Have you run them out, or have you heard about people running them out as engrams?
Yeah, I have not run attempted abortions. I have run prenatal engrams, like from you know, something that happened like in its 4th or 5th month state, you know, where the pregnant mother hits her belly and she's into a fight with her husband and so on. And it was quite amazing, because I was running this incident, and this woman, she hadn't even read Dianetics. She didn't know that she could run, you know, before birth engrams, prenatal engrams. She didn't even know about it. But I just ran this thing. I started auditing her on Dianetics, and nothing happened. So I went into the repeat technique. You know, I heard she said a certain phrase again and again. I can't do this, or I don't believe this, or something like that. She kept saying that when I asked her to run. Just a pleasure moment, you know. So instead of trying to get her to run any incident, because she couldn't really, then I just asked her to repeat that phrase, and she started repeating it. And all of a sudden, she said she got what do you call it when you don't feel well and you want to vomit and so on?
Nausea.
Huh?
Nausea.
Yeah, she got that, and she opened her eyes and said, "Oh, I'm not feeling good. Oh, it's really." I said, "Close your eyes and just repeat this sentence, this phrase again." And so she did, and all of a sudden she says, "It's my mother saying it." And you must understand that this woman hadn't read Dianetics. She didn't know shit about it.
Yeah.
So she says, "It's my mother saying it," and she opened her eyes and said, "I heard my mother's voice, but it sounded strange." I said, "Okay, close your eyes. Let's hear what your mother is saying." And so I found and took her into the incident that way. And she started telling what she's hearing. And I asked her to not to tell what happened, but what is happening. So I said, "So what is your mother saying? Close your eyes. What is your mother saying?" And she started talking and telling and it was not a very long thing, but there was something else there. And so I took her to the beginning of that incident, so to speak. And all of a sudden she started hearing very like modelly sound, not very clear, like really unclear, but it could be her father. She says she doesn't understand, and she feels so like dizzy, and she feels sick, and she's really uncomfortable. And all of a sudden, I mean, I think I ran that incident like 5 or 6 times, and then she says, "It's my mother fighting my father. I'm not even born yet. I can't see anything. The whole thing is black," and she didn't have any visual.
So she was in her mum's stomach.
Yeah, she discovered that herself. She hadn't never read Dianetics. She didn't know this thing existed. I just ran it, and she found out she was in her mother's stomach, and her mother hit her stomach, or her father hit her, or whatever. And then so it was painful, and it was really uncomfortable. And then these voices, they were basically having a fight. They were fighting, arguing about something. And that was what she heard, and that was what came up on the repeat technique. And then I ran her through it again, and then she just cracked up laughing. She just couldn't believe it that it was her mother, but it was clearly her mother, she said. And she could hear some voice in the background. It must have been her father. And the whole thing, in one really weird way, made totally sense. And the engram blew, and she couldn't help opening her eyes, and she was just laughing and laughing and laughing and saying, "Oh, amazing, I can't believe it." And she was just I went down to examine her, and she was laughing all the way down to examine her, and she had a floating needle, and I said goodbye to her, and she went home, and she went out there and walked towards the bus stop, and she was just laughing like mad. It's just amazing stuff like that, and I can't deny it because I was her auditor and I ran it like that, and that was exactly what happened. So there is definitely some truth in Dianetics, and definitely some truth in Scientology. Even in the OT levels, there are some truth, but it's interpreted by a mentally ill person. Okay, and if you go into his universe and his way of looking at things, you just go mentally ill just like him. You'll join him. Okay. That doesn't mean that all the tools are bad, because there definitely are not. There are some good tools.
It seems like the religion is like some sort of like it's like a beta test or whatever. It's like a demo version, and it's like a rough copy, and it's like I think that it needs to be corrected, the whole thing. It needs to just need a whole overhaul and fix up of stuff, and it could be a really cool religion, you know. And maybe this whole entity stuff needs to get thrown out, you know.
But that's all the OC levels. It's all like that.
Yeah. What about the implant running on the OT levels? Is that for you personally, or is that just more implants for entities?
It is for entities, but you don't know that because you run them on OT2, and it's basically just repeating statements from the implant. And I don't even remember what the statements were, but there was long lists written by Hubbard of all these different statements. You just have to call them out loud until the meter doesn't read anymore. Then you take the next one. Then you call it out loud. You say it out loud in the room, and until the meter doesn't read. And so you go on and on and on for hours.
So you don't say it in your head, you say it out loud.
Yeah, on the OT2, like on clearing course, you would say it out
loud. Is that because why?
I have no clue. I don't know. You just call it out loud.
Okay.
And you sit there and look at the e-meter until it doesn't read anymore. Then you take the next one, call it out loud many of time until it doesn't read, and that's it.
So the OT levels, you no longer deal with your own case. You're dealing with entities pretty much. And even when you're like, they don't, on OT2, they don't even tell you it's entities, but apparently it's entities.
No, because they want to discharge. They want to discharge the entities by calling out all these implants, you know, commands from implants, basically. You call them out loud, not on one specific, and that's probably why you would say it loud, because you don't focus on any specific pressure area, because you're not told about that yet. So for now, it's just discharging all the BTs and clusters, and then once you're through that, it's just hours and hours and hours of calling all these items until they are all flat, so to speak, until they don't read on the meter, and then you're through OT2. And it's supposed to discharge enough of the case so you're actually able to get the truth on the OT3 theory, where you learn about the OT3 incident and BTs and clusters, and then you can handle it now because it's been discharged sufficiently for you to be safely running it.
Okay.
So that's basically the theory about it, why it's built like that.
All right. And what wins did you get from OT2?
None.
Really? But how could you attest to it then? Or you can just attest because it was all flat?
Yeah.
Really? You got like no wins?
Maybe. I don't remember. Maybe I got some imaginary wins, I suppose. So, yeah, I think I did get some. I imagined something. But you do that all the time. You have to imagine stuff all the time in order to confirm your own belief, you know?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So, but it was nothing. It didn't move anything for me. It's just like I was now excited. I was ready for OT3, and I was excited going into that super secret course room.
Do you think it's a waste of time auditing beings as opposed to auditing yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Because if you have a problem with an entity, a demon, a BT, or even your boss or your girlfriend, if you're having a problem with it, it's not meant that you just disconnect from it. You know, that's not a way of solving problems. I mean, there's a reason why you have it. You need to learn something about yourself. You need to learn something about life. You need to handle it. So just saying goodbye to it doesn't handle anything. It doesn't help anything. And that's why, you know, that's what they're trying to do on the OT levels. They're trying to disconnect from the trouble they have. You know, by imagining that the trouble comes from a pressure area for some BT, and then they need to audit it to get it away, to get rid of it. But that's not the way to solve anything. You know, it's not you don't move, you don't grow, you don't learn anything, you don't become bigger just by getting rid of your problems. So the whole basic philosophy is wrong. I mean, you know, you have a problem with your neighbor, find out what's causing the problem, sort it out, find out in yourself why you are getting upset, all that stuff. You know, that's the decent approach, not just getting rid of it. Just kill your neighbor and you don't have the problem. It's not the way it works, you know. I remember once I had a boss who was really causing me trouble, and I declared him in my own universe. I declared him SP because I looked at the antisocial personality traits, and I said, okay, this guy is definitely an SP. So I stopped working for him. And you know what? The next boss I got was also an SP. And the next one, you know, they were all SPs. So maybe there was something I had to learn about myself, you know. Those guys, you just can't get rid of all the SPs because they just keep occurring until you find out, why do they occur in your life? Why do they bother you? You know, when I found out what it was, they didn't bother me anymore. So they could stay. You know, if you have an entity, it's welcome to stay. You know, the only problem with having an entity is if it bothers you. But if it bothers you, you cannot just disconnect from it. You need to find out why it bothers you. You know, when you're through with that, it doesn't bother you anymore. And then it can leave or it can stay. It doesn't matter. You know, so it's a totally different approach. And I think as long as you think or believe that disconnecting, handling somebody, you know, when Hubbard talks about handling, he doesn't mean handling yourself. He means handling the SP, handling the guy, you know, handle them, handle the sites, handle this, handle that, do something to them so they don't bother you. But that's a totally opposite way around.
He did it as a like a philosophy of approaching life, but then like it caused more problems for him because he would flare up his enemies, and then his enemies would attack him even more. And it's like, whoa, if he played a more peaceful, if he was more clear and peaceful and like a Buddhist and stuff, then you know, he wouldn't have caused these problems.
Exactly, and he would be able to solve them. And now, so if something got into so much trouble for him that he couldn't handle it, then he would run away from it. That he calls that disconnect. It's running away from the problems. Disconnect. So either the whole wrong thing in my view is that, you know, you focus on something outside, you know, something external to yourself. So do something to them so they don't bother you. Or if you can't, then disconnect, run away from them. So that's the whole philosophy, and that's the whole philosophy of the OT levels as well. You want to get rid of stuff that bothers you. Get rid of it. And it will never happen. They will never manage. They will never get rid of all the things that bothers them. Even though if it's an entity, or if it's a boss, or if it's an employee or a girlfriend, or if it's your parents, whatever. You can't just get rid of it and then hope that will help your life. So that's the whole philosophy is the other way around. And that's why they never get through the OT levels. I mean, you have some guy, he's been auditing on OT7 for 12 years. Okay? Then he thinks he's done. Then comes golden age of tech. I mean, this is many years ago. Then comes golden age of tech, and they are all sent back on OT7 again to do it the golden age of tech way. So all of a sudden, there are more BTs in clusters. You know,
what's the golden age of tech way? Like, how did it change?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't do golden age of tech. That was when I was leaving. But it's just a number of drills they have to do, and they had this e-meter simulator. They had a simulator of an e-meter that could reproduce different reads and so on. You need to study it again. It's just a way of making money by having people studying the extended courses and revised references, and then training it in a different way. Like they had to sit and confront a piece of paper on the wall for 2 hours, and they had to learn all the stuff by heart so they could repeat it. You know, it was just a way of studying that was new and even more robotic. So okay, that also came to OT7. So they need to do the golden age of tech OT7, and all of a sudden, these guys who've been auditing for 12 years on this in this sick universe, they had to go back, and you know what they found? They had plenty of BTs in clusters, so they just never ever get through that. You know?
Yeah,
it doesn't move them anywhere. It doesn't take them anywhere.
There's probably like spiritual groups out there, maybe like the Illuminati and like Freemasons and that have their own way of dealing with entities, and they probably listen to this and go, Oh, that Hubbard, yeah, he came up with like, they probably say, oh, he's a bit of a nutter. He came up with like a retarded way of dealing with entities and stuff. And like, look at those poor Scientologists, you know, like, look, they probably think their tech is pure and the only way of handling entities. And so they probably think they're the best at dealing with it and stuff, and that other spiritual groups shouldn't be allowed to deal with it because it's inappropriate or something like that. The same attitude Scientologists have towards the other spiritual groups.
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
Like our tech's the only way and stuff, you know, and
yeah, I believe that, yeah.
You mentioned, I just want to ask you about the whole L. Ron Hubbard being an alcoholic thing because it's really interesting. So where have you got that information from?
Whoa! It's many years ago. I went into that in quite some depth, and there was many different people who told that he was like typing away on his typewriter till the middle of the night, and he was drinking rum. There's so many different accounts of people drinking rum with him, or telling about him doing it. So it's not just one source, or numerous of sources. But Andy, I don't remember them because it's many years since I did all this research into Hogwarts, but I went into it for a year almost and did it quite extensively. And I also wrote about it in my book of some of the sources. So, but I don't really remember what they're called today.
Yeah, because I'm looking into that alcoholic thing because it is very interesting. And at first I thought, oh, that's black PR or whatever, or a rumor. But then you look into it further and you're like, oh no, this might actually be true. Like this isn't just.
I'm sure it is true. There's too many different people telling their stories about it, and why would they lie? All of them? No, it doesn't make sense. And I think and looking at him, there are pictures where he's sitting in the hotel room with long hair and black teeth, and he looks really like an alcoholic.
No, and also in the 80s, he was like full on obese, like super fat, And you hear him sing on that album that they made. The Freedom album or something like that, and he's got a real deep voice. That comes from when you're really fat. So like it's not rumors, like he was really fat towards the end of his life. I mean, he was an outpointy OT, L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
And authors are also good at creating characters, and they even write books under a fake name and under a fake character. So they're good at mocking things up and creating characters and stuff. So he was creating L. Ron Hubbard, the amazing OT that saved the world or whatever. So he was mocking that up. What was the Ronzorg alien data like? Because or data about what's going on in the world like? Because that seems to be a whole nother side. But was it cool information?
There was these operating bulletins by Captain Bill, and they had I forgot what it was called. There was some film made by Captain Bill also. It was not Revolt in the Stars, it was something else, with a story about how the different species of animals came to the planet and so on. I mean, Captain Bill was even more out in space than Howard was. And he was really into this space stuff, and he was just totally over the top. I felt that he was, in the beginning, I was fascinated, and I believed the story about his telepathy with Hubbard and Elron Elray. I think that he was Hubbard's alien name or something like that. But to me, it became more and more clear that the guy was a nuthead. He was a lunatic. And I mean, the stories that he came up with and so on, it was just too crazy, really. And I had a funny experience with a woman, and I studied in Ronzorg together with her, and she was single, and she was obviously sad about not having a husband or boyfriend. I mean, she didn't say it, but I could just sense it. She was not like, it was just like this was the point in her life that she wanted to solve, really. It felt like it very much. And she spoke, and we spoke about everything. I asked if she was married and had kids and so on. No, she was single, and she doesn't think that, she didn't want to bring any more bodies around this planet, And it was a woman. She was maybe in the beginning of the 30s. And women want children, and that's a healthy thing, and that's a good thing to do, because that's what we are put on earth to do.
Well, that's what the body is created
beings.
to do. The body's created to, like, it's programmed. It's a freaking program that we're possibly stuck in, and it's like it's designed to do certain things, and the program gets viruses and recording problems, and that's when you get weird shit like a tranny.
Yeah, that is a program, and we are programmed to do that. It's in our genes, and that's why we are basically, as human beings, that's our most important job that we are programmed to do, is to get children. And she was not. It was obvious that she was not like, wow, this is fantastic, I will never have children. It's, it was like she said that because she had not sorted out her problem. So she had this idea of not wanting to put any more bodies onto this planet. I mean, religious talk, really.
Well, I think that sounds like she's got case problems, like she's keyed in and stuff, and
yeah. She was, obviously, it was not a big cognition like, wow, this is the truth. I mean, come on, this is fantastic. I'm not here to give birth to babies, because she is. So it's just like, it was a cold thing, because I don't know if you have any children yourself, Andy, but I have two, and I'm just telling you that it's the best thing that ever happened to me. That's becoming a father. There's nothing more fantastic than having your own kids, and the love you experience, and they grow up and so on. It's just the most fantastic, wonderful, and fantastic thing.
You take a lion, right, and you put him in a small little cage. The lion's just going to run into problems because the lion's not supposed to be in a cage. So if you're in a body and you're doing and you're not doing what the body's programmed to do, you're going to get mental illness and all these problems and stuff, because it's
exactly.
I mean, it's like you can fight it and say, oh, I'm resisting the body and I'm being an OT and all this stuff. But it's like, you've been given this tool, look after it. And like, why resist the tool? You're stuck. You're here. If you are enslaved in the matrix, don't resist it. Just put up with it. Like, it's stupid to try and fight it.
Yeah. And that's exactly the point. You got the point exactly. And she was having this line, no, I don't want to put any more bodies on this planet. It was something, it was not, it was just because she did not sort out her problem that she was single, basically. And then she found some excuse for it, which was a kind of cognition.
That's exactly what I was thinking you were going to head with this. Yeah. She basically, you're saying she came into Scientology, she didn't handle her ruin, and she was coming up with a cognition to cover up that she hadn't handled her ruin.
Exactly. And that type of cognitions and so on was quite common, I think. The thing that people in Runtalk would tell you would be, I mean,
well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. How did this girl, was she involved with the church all the way up, or was she involved with Runtalk all the way up?
I don't remember. I think she was Runtalk. I don't think she was. This one was not from a church, as far as I remember. There were both. There were some. I mean, mainly they were not from the church, but there were also those. Maybe 40% would be from the church and 60% would be just Runtalk or something like that. I can't say exactly, but that was my experience. So there were quite a number of them who never been in the church, and then there was those like me and my friends. We came from the church. But these crazy thoughts that one of the guys there, the leaders there, he thought he was an angel sent from outer space, and he would talk to you like, he would smile and say, like, it was just like a synthetic universe, a bit like Hubbards. The good thing about them, they were not like strong leaders, or they were not going for money. They believed in the stories, they believed in the philosophy, and they just wanted to become OT, and they convinced themselves they were OT, but they were not OT. I mean, they were really not OT, but they convinced themselves in their own world. You can be anything in your own world, but OT, that's something more like objective, where other people can experience it as well. But I mean, it was not there. It was not there.
I think what sort of ruined the OT levels or Scientology a bit for me was finding out that certain people already had these psychic abilities, and then when they go to do them, they exercise them, so they might get a little bit better or something like that. But they've already got the psychic abilities, like their mum was already psychic, they might have inherited it or something like that. And other people who don't have it, they go to do it and they don't suddenly get psychic abilities.
Not from doing Scientology, no.
Yeah, only a little bit more to go. So, but were you blown out by any of the alien data, or you just, because I noticed that I disagreed with it because it didn't match up with ufology, but it definitely opened my mind, and it was interesting stuff like finding out about like the bankers and stuff like that.
The what, sorry?
The bankers. Like the international bankers and stuff like that. I think it was interesting.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like models and scenarios and stuff like that was interesting.
It was more like a conspiracy theory, really, where Hubbard says that there's a 12 men who controls all of the planet and so on.
But then he switches from that in Mission Earth and goes on about Rockefeller just owning everything, and he just gets obsessed with Rockefeller. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Like, I don't think it's just Rockefeller. Everyone talks about Rothschild. Hubbard never talked about Rothschild.
And so it's more like a conspiracy theory, and that's part of the OT3 tale as well. But to me, the most important thing was that I got now an explanation why I wasn't clear, because I had attested to clear, well knowing that I couldn't do all that it says in the Dianetic book. You know, there's a chapter in the Dianetics book where it's called Clear, and it explains what a clear can do. And obviously I couldn't do any of that, but I tested Clear anyway, because they said I had done my CCRD, my clearing I forgot what CCRD, clearing something rundown. And I did, and I answered the questions, and they looked at the e-meter, and they told me that it was right. I was clear. I had the clear cognition, and I was clear. So I went and I tested to clear, and I had to tell my success story, you know, about being clear, and I knew that I was not clear according to the definition in the Dianetics book. So to me, the OT levels was also an explanation why I didn't feel clear, because there was something more to it. Like I had still strange thoughts and reactions and psychosomatic illnesses and all that stuff that I had always had, you know. But obviously I was clear. I was checked by the technical personnel, and I got CCRD, clear certainty rundown. That's what it's called. Clear certainty rundown. That's why it's called CCRD. I got there several times, and I was attested clear, and everybody said, and the CS checked my folder, and it was all right. I was definitely clear. Now I didn't feel like clear. So the OT levels was an explanation to me why I didn't feel like I was clear, because there was something on the other dynamics. There was entities sitting in my head, in my brain, on my body, in my mind, on my spirit, and they were giving me all these engramic inputs, like my engram bank.
You could say it keeps the pyramid scheme going.
Exactly. That's exactly what it did. But for me, it made me more calm. Okay, I am clear. It is something else. Now I need to sort this something else. So that was the main thing for me on the OT thing. Not so much the story about the 12 men and all that stuff. And of course, then I had to pay a lot of money to do it.
I've got too many questions for you. Can we do this again?
Yeah, why not? Why
not? Just because, I mean, I have too many questions that just relate to what we've spoken about, but then I've also got some other questions that are on other things. But let's do this again. And I have just too many questions, and it's just going to go for too long. Yeah. Okay, well, let's just finish up with one last question then. What I didn't quite get an answer from you about this, but what were the changes to how Ron Zorg and Captain Bill staff deal with entities? What were the specific changes? Like, How is it different?
It was different in your approach, that you would approach an entity, and then you would take it from the top of the org board, like they were organized. So there would be a holder, a main entity. You know, he would hold the whole cluster together, and there could be a stack. Different terms, clusters are stacked together in a certain way, and there would be a holder. You can audit him, and then they would break up, and then you could audit the remains and so on. You don't do that in the church. You just audit VT or clusters.
And was it better? Was his way of doing it better?
No, it was the same, I think. I had some experiences where I really felt that some pressure area left me. Like I had some tendency to get colds or something around my nose area, and I would get a cold fairly easily.
Look, this is just
very easily. That was addressed.
It's reeking of handling the wrong whys and all this sort of stuff, because that's what I found when I first got into Scientology. I got brainwashed in the idea that it's all incidents that cause your problems, right? And then I got more and more educated, and I realized, oh no, it might be actually like pollen in the air, and my body just is not designed to handle pollen. And it might be that there's a petrol leak in my car and it's breathing in that's causing the problem. It might be because I'm not stretching my arm every day because I need to do that in order to keep it in good shape because I'm working it out too much. And you realize, there's all these other explanations and all these other science subjects for problems, and Scientology's just gone all into the whole idea that it's all mental, and then I guess with the OT levels that it's all spiritual that's causing all the problems.
So and you always look for
it's data evaluators
for a reason.
Exactly. It's all about wrong whys and wrong targets and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Most of it is, and that's also what drives you nuts, because you can't get rid of anything if you don't target the right cause.
And even Hubbard says right at the end of OTA, because I believe that Truth Revealed document, he says, I thought this would handle it, and I thought that would handle it, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, so you're just going along on this little adventure with him, paid thousands of dollars to do it, spent all this time, and like you're not getting what he was trying to achieve, and he knew it as well. So it's just pretty crazy. All right. Well,
we had one PC once in the DK org, and she had such a toothache, and we ordered her on Dianetics, and we ran the one engram after the other. But in the end, we sent her to the dentist, and it turned out she had an infection in that tooth. So they sorted it out by the dentist, and she was fine then. And we run her hours and hours and hours with Dianetics and ran engrams and chains and all kind of things. And then she went to the dentist and sorted it out. And that was it.
Sometimes someone might have some spiritual thing happen, maybe something cool like an out-of-body experience or something, and they're really a really cool cognition, and they're feeling really uppity in spirits. And then their illness goes away, but it only lasts temporary. Then eventually their illness will come back, because you actually have to handle the right target.
Exactly.
Okay, just quickly with the cross-dressing thing, this is the last question. Do you have any personal information about the cross-dressing thing and Captain Bill? Did you hear it from anyone inside Ron's org or anything?
No.
So you got it from
I only read about that part, and I heard it from John Attack as well.
Yeah.
But no, in Ron's org, they didn't. It's funny, because I asked them several times, because two of the guys down there, they were working with Captain Bill, so they met him. He was there, and they started working with him. And I kept asking, how was Captain Bill? And the only answer I could get was, he was impressive. And I kept going. And next time I would come back to Frankfurt, I would always ask again, and so how was it working with Captain Bill? How was he? Well, he was impressive. That was the only thing they ever told me. That only word was the only thing they ever said about actually what was he like, So I haven't heard anything about cross-dressing from anybody directly. The only thing I've heard from somebody who actually worked with him and knew him was that he was impressive.
Yeah, well, I thought it was black PR until I spoke to Peter Moon, who was on the Apollo ship and had met, Captain Bill and stuff. And he said he saw his Essex folder and stuff. And he said, yeah, it was just a known thing that this was a thing that he had of cross-dressing. And this was back in the what, 74 or something like that, before, you know, they would have attacked him and put in false data or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
PR,
Yeah, of course.
back PR and all that stuff. So anyway, thanks for being on the show, and we'll do this again. And yeah, I've just got some more questions, and that was really good, the information. Thanks for that.
Good, excellent. You're welcome.
All right, see ya.
All right, take care.
Oh wait, hold on. Your book, The Defector. You got a website, yeah?
Once again?
You got a website, don't you?
I used to. I don't know if it's still active. I must admit, it's quite some years ago. I built it on the book. My book is on Amazon.com.
All right, and is it available as an audio book?
I think only in Danish.
Okay.
I think it's only an audio book in Danish. Otherwise, it's just a download thing.
Anyway, people have to work out how to make it their phones or whatever speak it, because that's what I've got. I've got an app that can speak written text, and then
that's nice.
I've also got this option where I scroll down on the screen and it can speak what's on the screen, but it makes it into an audio book, and that's how I can get through heaps of stuff.
That's quite nice.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
Great. Welcome.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.